Brazil, the death toll resulting from heavy rains and landslides in Petropolis has risen to 120. Ecuador's National Assembly approved the bill that guarantees the voluntary interruption of pregnancy in case of rape. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko landed in Moscow on Friday for talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss further activities regarding joint military forces as the two countries hold military exercises together. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Now we begin with the news. In Brazil, the death toll after the strong floods sparked by heavy rains in the city of Petropolis rose to 120. In the latest civil defense report, at least 116 people are still missing. However, rescue teams are still working in the area and warned that the hopes of finding survivors are low. Authorities informed that during the night on Thursday it rained again and the situation could worsen. In this sense, they asked the regional government to extend the public emergency decree due to the danger of new landslides. Residents of the area have asked the governor of Rio de Janeiro, Claudio Castro, for more firefighters and rescue teams. A dense haze of smoke covered the Paraguayan capital of Asunción on Thursday. Meteorology experts said it is caused by forest fires in the north of Argentina. According to the organization Air Paraguay, air quality has become critical since Monday. A meteorologist from Paraguay's National Meteorology Department, Julio Ayala, explained that the largest number of these heat sources detected by satellites are concentrated in the extreme northeast of Argentina and the south of Paraguay. Health Minister recommended not to expose to outside air and to stay indoors, with doors and windows closed. Ayala stressed that this type of event is what climate change will be bringing along. In Argentina alone, fires continue in the provinces of Rio Negro, Misiones, Chubut, Formosa and Corrientes, where currently there are 15 outbreaks.
This type of event, increasingly prolonged and more frequent droughts, is what climate change would bring along. I always try to keep my mask on, not now, but it feels a bit different. I'm in the air, like it's heavy, strange.
In the United States, Illinois State Police said that the Interstate 39 between Normal and Minonk will remain closed for approximately 12 hours after multiple crashes involving more than 100 vehicles were reported on the roadway. According to authorities, the southbound lanes will remain closed on Friday as crews clean up debris and plow snow from the road. The accident was caused by a major winter storm that created unreliable travel conditions across Illinois. The crash occurred in Woodford County in the community of El Paso. Officials reported that all southbound lanes and Interstate 39 were shut down, with traffic diverted off the exit 14. Several other area highways experienced significant issues, including A74 eastbound, which was completely blocked for a while after a crash involving several semi-trailers. Interstate 55 was also in the scene of multiple crashes, as well as Interstates 57 and 80, which had multiple crashes that blocked traffic during the evening commute. Britain's Meteorological Service issued its first ever danger to life weather warning for London, and the army was placed on standby as Storm Eunice made landfall on Friday. Hundreds of homes were reported without power in Cornwall, southwest England, which released heat overnight, bringing gusts of 145 kilometers per hour. The storm has caused the Met Office to issue its first red weather warning for the capital, including significant disruption and dangerous conditions due to extremely strong winds, adding that roofs could be blown off, trees uprooted, and power lines brought down. Roads, bridges, and railway lines have already been hit, causing delays and cancellations to bus, train, and ferry services. Ireland's Meteorological Office also issued an alert for stormy news, warning of severe and damaging winds and the possibility of coastal flooding. Venezuela's Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez held a telephone conversation with his Argentinian counterpart Jorge Triana in order to receive information on the invasion plan considered by the government of former President Mauricio Macri. Several media reported that Vladimir Lopez welcomed the start of the internal investigation into the Puma operation. These maneuvers began after President Nicolás Maduro ordered investigations to be carried out, which also had the unanimous vote of the National Assembly. Minister Triana declared that he was not surprised by the interventionist measures against the country because Macri was an active member of the Lima Group. The Ombudsman's Office alerted this Tuesday that 274 municipalities are in extreme risk of rights violation in Colombia, ahead of the electoral processes called to the next month, and urged the state to take preventive actions urgently. The causes of the risk came from the possibility of armed strikes, gun plans, threats, attacks against public forces, the Ombudsman's Office detailed, but also electoral officials, candidates, citizens, or human rights defenders are also at risk. According to the institution, the report is made with the aim to alert the state and to impose a quick and effective answer to the institutionality ahead of the risk of rights violation. Chile's Constitutional Convention approved its first 10 articles, 5 of which passed without changes, into the draft of the new constitution. The Constitutional Convention held its first vote on initiatives coming from the thematic commissions, and those who passed the two-thirds threshold became the first ones to be included in the draft of the new constitution. The proposals approved in full include the articles on equality, gender perspective, and collaboration mechanisms to resolve conflicts. Meanwhile, among the articles that were partially approved, with sections to be reviewed by the Justice Commission, were the one on plurinationality, legal pluralism, and interculturality, and others like the right to access to justice, as well as a proposal on publicity, probity, and transparency. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Ecuador's National Assembly approved a bill that guarantees the voluntary interruption of pregnancy in the case of rape. The bill to guarantee the voluntary interruption of pregnancy in the case of rape, which was approved with 75 votes in favor, 41 against, and 14 abstentions in the plenary session of the Assembly this Thursday. According to the text, a pregnancy resulting from rape may be interrupted up to 12 weeks of gestation, and also exceptionally up to 18 weeks in the case of girls, adolescents, and rural women. From now on, the law will be sent to the executive for its promulgation, for which it has 30 days to present its observations or arrange its publication in the official registry. Meanwhile, abortion rights activists, the pro-choice side, and the anti-abortion protesters, the pro-life and conservatives, demonstrated outside the Legislative Palace in what was a debate that crossed Ecuadorian society. The pro-choice demonstrators in favor of the law expressed that, according to the prosecutor's office, between August 2014 and November 2021, there were around 42,000 rape reports. At the same time, in the demonstrations, they expressed that 7 underage girls, most of them even under 14 years of age, gave birth daily in Ecuador, the third Latin American country with the highest rate of pregnancy in girls and adolescents, according to official data. In addition, they demanded the elimination of the maximum time limit limits for abortion in the case of rape, considering this point as restrictive for the most vulnerable sectors.
We are here representing all rape survivors who will be forcibly driven underground and forced into motherhood in cases of rape, because the time limits that the Assembly imposes are restrictive. They leave the most vulnerable, the girls, the indigenous women, the Afro women, the migrant women, the most impoverished women, outside the law. Clandestinity will be their torture, their condemnation.
On Thursday, Honduras' Supreme Court of Justice announced April 4th as the official date for the handing down of the sentence against former Honduran military officer David Castillo for the 2016 murder of environmentalist and indigenous leader Berta Cáceres. This was announced by the spokesperson for the Supreme Court of Justice of Honduras, Lucia Villars. The sentence comes 9 months after the conviction against former military officer David Castillo, who was executive president of the company Desarrollos Energéticos Anonymous Society in charge of the Agua Zarca hydroelectric dam, when Berta Cáceres, who opposed the project because of an environmental damage it would cause, was murdered on March 2, 2016. Berta Cáceres, coordinator of the Civic Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations of Honduras, was shot to death in her home, despite being under precautionary measures from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and her multiple denounces of death threats. In Puerto Rico, 4 union workers from Prosol UTIER were arrested after sitting down, blocking the entrance of the Minillas Government Center, awaiting the arrival of hundreds of federal and state employees for the workday. Protesting years without paid raises, the 4 employees of Puerto Rico's Authority on Roads and Transportation refused to budge, until a specialized police unit finally moved in to remove them. Demonstrations has echoed across the country in recent weeks as government employees and supporters took to the streets, emboldened by thousands of public school teachers who abandoned the classrooms in early February to demand raises and better pensions. Legislators are the only public workers who have had an automatic cost of living increase for their salaries. Other public employees have not gotten paid rises in more than a decade as the cost of living rises and the island fights to emerge from a lengthy economic crisis and a government bankruptcy. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko landed in Moscow on Friday for talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss further activities regarding joint military forces as the two countries hold military exercises together. In statements to the Belarusian media outlet Belta, Lukashenko said he held talks with Putin to decide when, on what terms, and on what schedule Russian troops will depart his country after the conclusion of the military drills Allied Resolve 2022 on February 20th. The joint exercises are held from February 10th to 20th. The purpose is to practice suppressing and repulsing external aggression, countering terrorism, and defending the interests of the Union state. Military units from Siberia and the Russian Far East, as well as troops from the armed forces of Belarus, are taking part in the drills. And China pledged to continue to provide support and assistance to Nepal's economic and social development within its capacity, said Wang Wenbin, spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, on Friday, adding that it opposes any forms of coercive diplomacy.
We have noted the relevant reports. China welcomes the development cooperation between the international community and Nepal to contribute to Nepal's economic growth and improvement of people's livelihoods. However, the will of the Nepalese people should be fully respected and no political conditions should be attached. We oppose coercive diplomacy and harming Nepal's sovereignty and interests for someone's own purposes. As a friendly neighbor and development partner of Nepal, China will, as always, support the Nepalese people in their independent choice of development path. Support the Nepalese side in making the right choice that conforms to national interests and reflects the will of the Nepalese people, and continue to provide support and assistance to Nepal's economic and social development within our capacity.
In France, a major strike paralyzed most of Paris' metro network and city train grid on Friday, disrupting the daily commutes of millions of people as workers demand greater pay hikes than offered by the management. The French capital public transport company said 6 subway lines were closed, down from 80 previously reported, with the remaining lines operating only partially. The city's main rapid transit system, north to south and east to west lines, were also hit. Just 2 lines, the 1 and the 14th, which are both self-driving without any human conductor aboard, were unaffected by the strikes. In recent years, Paris' public transport system, one of the world's busiest, has been thrown into chaos several times. Parisians remember above all the month-long walkouts in the fall of 2019, when public transport and railroad workers protested against plans from pension reform, and also the President Emmanuel Macron did the In Greece, a fire broke out on Friday on an Italian-flagged ferry sailing through the Ionian Sea, injuring 3 people among the nearly 300 on board. The Greek Coast Guard said 2 people were still trapped on board and had telephoned for help, with a Super Puma helicopter en route to pick them up. They fired on the Euroferry Olympia while heading to Italy. The vessel was carrying 239 passengers and 51 crew on board, as well as vehicles. According to the director of the Corfu Hospital, Leonidas Rumbaris, the 3 passengers who had light injuries were admitted for precautionary reasons. The Coast Guard said the rescue operation for the 2 remaining passengers was still underway and that it will take several hours to extinguish the fire. Now we move on to other topics. Hundreds of truckers clogging the streets of Canada's capital city in a protest against COVID-19 restrictions aren't budging and bracing for what could be a possible police crackdown. The nearly 3-week face-off in Ottawa seems to be escalating as busloads of officers arrived on Thursday near Parliament Hill. The city's interim police chief says action is imminent. Protesters have besieged Ottawa for nearly 3 weeks in a demonstration that's shaking Canada's reputation for civility and rule following. Police did make at least 3 arrests just before nightfall Thursday around Parliament Hill, but officers were not moving in force on the demonstrators. As coronavirus cases are surging in Hong Kong, hotel rooms and apartments have been turned into quarantine accommodation to ease pressure on the public medical system. With daily cases surging to a record high of over 6,000 on Wednesday, Hong Kong continued to battle the ongoing 5th coronavirus wave. Shortages of medical and isolation facilities have been the biggest challenge. 7 public hospitals have reached or exceeded their full capacity, while the overall occupancy rate of 17 public hospitals is at 90%. To help ease the pressure, the government has designated 3,000 flats for isolating infected patients. These units are from 3 new public housing blocks in Fanlin and Lai Kin. Local authorities reported hotels were also used for the same purpose. South Korea will extend indoor dining hours at restaurants by an hour but maintain a 6-person limit on private social gatherings as it wrestles with a massive coronavirus wave driven by Omicron. The 100,000 new cases reported on Friday was another record and about a 25-fold increase from the levels seen in mid-January when Omicron first emerged as the country's dominant strain. The country also added more than 500,000 infections in the past 7 days alone, bringing its caseload to over 1.7 million. More than 86% of South Koreans have been fully vaccinated and 58% have received booster shots. Health officials started opening and offering 4th vaccination shots in nursing homes and other long-term settings.
아주 어린이들 말이야. 손에 당장 여러분들. 아주 어린이들 말이야. 손에 당장 여러분들.
The number of infections continues to increase as the Omicron variant is spreading. The number of new patients is doubling every week, and we do not know yet when the number of virus cases will peak. However, we're maintaining the number of seriously ill patients and the number of deaths low as compared to the number of new daily virus. Currently, it is difficult to predict the peak of the Omicron variant, including when it will peak and the number of cases at the peak. However, a number of experts in the private sector are presenting simulation models predicting that the Omicron variant will peak around the end of February or early March.